There we go.
Live stream.
Wow.
Okay.
Technical difficulties on the tech side. So I guess we're live streaming on YouTube. Hey, everybody. It's November 26th. Happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends in the US. We don't get the day off. So that's kind of sad. Again, we have a business box lunch. I guess I'm one of the co-hosts along with Matt. Matt's over there. Mitch is taking the day off. And then we have our guests, Dawn. Say hello, Dawn.
Hello.
Lorette.
Hello.
Hello. And Shannon. Welcome. Matt, would you like to say a couple of words today?
I would.
Awesome.
I'm very excited for November 26th, meaning that we have less than 1 month to the Ho-Ho Day, is like what my family likes to talk about it. So we set up our tree, we're in the spirit. There's so many great things that are happening right now, but I'm really excited to have all of the conversation today with Mitch, who might be visual if you're on YouTube right now. I'm not really sure. He's in the background and he's obviously left his Zoom open. So I think he's probably listening to us, but he's a wannabe American, as some of us are, and he is celebrating Thanksgiving with some of his closest friends. So Mitch, thanks very much for allowing us to kind of take corner stage or stage left. I like stage left. Paul will be stage right. But we have some great questions prepared because we like to be prepared. Right, Paul?
We're not prepared. We're winging this thing. Mitch is the guy that's always hitting us with these surprise questions of the week. Okay, this is what's going on. Panel, what do you think? So, no way. This is going to be a free flow. What's been going on? What have we been observing in business and, through our clients and our customers, and what's been kind of going on in our own lives? So, we're just going to open it up, and if anything is top of mind, we're going to talk about it.
I have a question for the group. How have we noticed, and again, I don't know if you're Christmas shopping yet, I've started supply chain. We've chatted about this here before. I think the past couple of weeks, it definitely has been top of mind. How have you noticed the stores looking, the shelves and things like that? Not just here, but with friends in BC or friends in Ontario. What does it look like to you?
Haven't been out there. Online.
Yeah. Okay. So
yeah, they're in stock. Okay, good. Click.
Well, and I read a large article today saying that up to 65% of us are going to just be doing 100% of our shopping online.
Yeah.
And again, I've been in that space for quite some time and have enjoyed it. But, for those people that want to touch and feel, what does that mean to them, right? And how, if that's your business of touch and feel retail, how are you able to get those people to come into your brick and mortar? What are your thoughts there?
Well, it's supposed to be the biggest shopping day of the year now is Black Friday in Canada.
Yeah.
It overtakes Boxing Day now. So that means there's a lot of people still want to go to the stores and see the values and so forth. But, I think it's diluted a little bit because, including myself, we put Black Friday week specials on. So we spread it out so we don't have this jam up on one day. That was fun in the retail business when I was in it to have this big, it was Boxing Day, but it seems like they're spreading it out, what I think is a lot easier on their system. But I don't know if the deals are as great as they were when they just put it on one day only and people lined up outside of your store to come in, and those were exciting times.
Forgive me because I'm a little bit late, so I'm not exactly sure what the topic is, but I worked in retail for many moons ago, before Black Friday was a really huge thing in Canada. I was living in Ontario at the time, so it was a big deal for this weekend to drive across the border to go shopping. But otherwise, we waited for Boxing Day. But having worked in retail, the biggest sales of the year are in January, when the retailer is struggling the most to get business. It's the slowest time of year. People have spent their most money. They're thinking about tax season. They're getting their bills from the holidays. And that's when the retailers tend to have their largest sales, is when they're trying to retain and gain new customers. So whether you're a Le Chateau or, a Best Buy, it used to be that your best deals were in January. So, and I found that last year as well. that I was waited all year for Black Friday to get a gosh darn Fitbit that was supposed to get me in great shape. I'll let you know how that went. And then it was cheaper in January.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Right.
so.
All right. Shannon, how about you?
I actually don't notice very much about it because we're not a very materialistic family. So if they get gift cards this year, they'll be lucky. We choose to spend time together, go to Candy Cane Lane. And we did the All Is Bright Festival. That's kind of more how our family chooses to spend it. So I don't worry about the sales and and that I'm not a huge shopper at all. So I'm not affected by it at all.
How about for some of your clients? If you are doing some social media for them, with them, have you found?
Mostly services. So we've got a catering company, which that's been fun and interesting with COVID and that sort of thing. But now with the QR codes and that sort of thing, we're seeing more inquiries about the catering. They did branch out to pre-made meals and that sort of thing too, and it seems to be keeping them sustainable, which is good. And a hair salon, as Bobby said, even those types of services, you'll see a decrease in the number of people, just because they're like, the credit card bills are coming in and they're like, oh, the roots, it's okay if the roots get a little long, we got to pay the credit card bill. So yeah, we really push over the Christmas season to get new clients in through the door for the holiday hair and what have you. And then of course there's wedding season after that is the next big season for onboarding new clients with that. My other clients are all in the capital market sphere. So of course today's little stock market announcement, that's affecting everybody. But hopefully nothing will come of this supposed new variant, and the stock market will recover when the markets open again on Monday. So hopefully, yeah.
And nobody's flying to South Africa apparently as of right now, and nobody's flying to or from there either. Anyway, as Mitch would always say, we don't talk politics, policy, or COVID, but Mitch isn't here right now, so maybe we'll have to dive a little bit deeper. Lorette, how about you? Do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a huge hermit. Number one, I'm like, outside, shopping. I don't know why, but when it comes to shopping, I actually do have boy brain where I'm like in, out, 30 seconds. So my favorite store and the only store I go shopping for Christmas is the dollar store, because it's not so and here's my plan when I go to the dollar store: something creative, something to fix something cool, and something ADD. So all of my friends get dollar store gifts. So I'm like the worst person to ask, because I'm like, this looks good, and then just write a little story with it. We're good to go. So hey everyone, if you're getting a present from me, it's from the dollar store.
Nice.
But even keeping up with the dollar store, if I want to promote my business on social media, Instagram, just talk about what we're doing, LinkedIn, when you go out into stores, like in October, the week before Halloween, if you hadn't gotten your Halloween stuff, especially stores like the dollar store where they're trying to force product in and out, if you didn't have your stuff, it's too bad. Half the Halloween aisle is now gone, and it's mostly Christmas. I was in the dollar store yesterday. Sorry, what was that?
I also just want to say all of my shopping for Christmas is done. So
good job. Yeah.
So
all of the Christmas stuff is out. So if you're like me and you like to craft and make things, I pop into the dollar store. But when I'm comparing that to my capacity to advertise on social media, which is definitely something that I'm working on, I'm a month behind of everybody else, because we're showing Christmas stuff in December, our holiday related stuff. We're talking about winter related things right now, how you can help your business through a season. And for a shopper, the season started in September. As soon as the school season was done, it was Halloween and Christmas is going to go until December 26th, and it's going to be gone. Like on the 27th, when you go into stores, everything is gone, and it's going to be regular stores, like our droopy, regular retail looking stuff. And we're still going to be like, okay, how do I get to my clients who are struggling with their end of year, who are like, I work in supplemental coverage. So how are people staying safe over this holiday? So we're always, when it comes to retail, I do feel like we're a step behind. And then we've got all of this new, we're not a step behind, but they're a step ahead, I should say. Like the marketing is
rude, and I really want to say something rude.
Go ahead.
So within Business Box Lunch, the last 2 months, we've all been like, prepare now for Christmas. We've been talking about preparing now for Christmas 2 months ago. So not trying to be a jerk, but you could have prepared earlier. Okay. Also, I would like to say with Matt's direct question about like, have you noticed stores looking thinner? So when I went to Cold Lake, the Dollar Tree out there was like, oh my God, there's fireworks here. Like, oh my goodness, there's cooler things there. So when I went to Edmonton and the Dollar Tree here, it was way lackluster. So like, there is like a tiny little twinge of like, something's going on. That's what I'm going to say to that question. And I wasn't trying to be there, Bobby. I was just like, well, we talk about that all the time to be prepared.
Well, I think I'm just in comparison to what retail stores are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're thinking like, as I personally, as a business owner, I'm not thinking about Christmas per se, because I'm not selling anything that is about Christmas and specifically the holidays. It's about lifestyle and care and coverage. And so how do I relate that to this frenzy of buying?
I'm in March,
which
right
I don't.
now. Like I'm planning for March right now. I'm planning for the end of 2022 right now. Like I have my whole year covered right now. Like as an entrepreneur, you look ahead. Like Christmas is done. It's past. It's already like in my head. I have everything I need to make an amazing Christmas. It's not even December yet. Like my tree's up already.
I think that will depend on your type of business though. Like for somebody who's working in say catering, like Shannon was talking about, like they're inundated right now and will be busy with Christmas. They can start booking for 2022, but they're in 2021 Christmas right now until the end of January. So depending on how you're thinking about it, to point out that people aren't prepared or aren't planning ahead would be
so then
you don't approach, if you're selling a product to retailers or stores, you don't even approach them in November. Like they're not going to see you because they're preparing. So if you've got a new product or something that's coming online, they're like, this is where we make the majority of our money and we don't have the time to see you.
We're talking about mindset work right now. We're talking about the idea of thriving versus surviving. So like, do you have a surviving mindset or do you have a thriving mindset? So even within every industry, how are you approaching it? Like, are you approaching it like, oh shit, I need to like get this done right now? Or like, hey, I can figure this out. I'm thriving in this today.
Right. And if I may, I want to ask Don, because he's our sales guru. What have you done in the past versus what are you coaching your clients to do now through the continued pandemic? Like, where is the narrative of, okay, yes, if you're retail, obviously you're somewhat heads down and just getting the next 30 days under your belt. But those who are going to thrive, using Lorette's terms, they're planning for their end of season sale in January and extending out, right? Like to me, it's always been about, especially in like the food and beverage world, you're going to be busy now. And again, strange times lie ahead, but is what it is. But I really did focus my business into January because I didn't actually need to worry about December because it took care of itself. So what have you kind of coached your clients on now to help them kind of grow their January, February, where realistically all we have to look forward to is our credit card bills?
Yeah. What I've seen with the clients I've had is they're actually seeing a lot of success right now, and they're forgetting about marketing and about planning their stuff ahead. It's like, wow, things are rolling. I just got some extra business, or we just got sales and orders for these things. And I go, yeah, that's great. But, when can we get together for 3 or 4 hours and plan next year? I'm busy. I got stuff. I said, that doesn't always last. We have to think a lot further ahead. I want to see 22 on paper. How does that all manage out? How do we continue the marketing? How do we keep this flywheel moving? So don't get lost in the short-term successes. It might just continue go, but I like to think that we have to stop and think about our next year right now, and take those just squeeze a couple hours out or something, and let's focus on what the plan looks like for next year, and make sure we're not cutting back on marketing or dropping our contact with our CRM contacts or whatever. So I'm trying to make them slow down for at least brief half hour, or not half hour, half a day, or a few hours, and I'm going out to see them in some cases. Say let's put our heads together and really make sure that you got 22 lined up.
Right. Thank you, Paul.
I think you always have to have a strategic plan, and start planning out for the new year. We know pretty much we're at the end of the year. We know things are going to slow down. People are going to focus on family. So it's about the 15th that things are just like whoop, pretty much dead. But it still doesn't mean that, you know, you just turn out the lights and walk away. You know, as business owners, we still have a lot of things that we can do on the back end. And what I like to do is to start focus my clients on 2022. You know, let's do some pre-planning. Let's take a pad and paper and a pen. Let's take an hour. Let's have quiet time, no interruption, no phone, nothing like that, and actually think about 2022. And it's amazing just having an hour to yourself, what can actually come, what different answers, what different solutions can come, because we're always dealing with certain problems. So I like to keep it going. You know, marketing always has to be a focus, because you're always on it, and most people are behind it. They think that they're just going to put it up and magically everything's going to appear. You know, I like to say it's like doing door-to-door sales in the desert. How productive are you going to be? You know, so it's really having that strategy for your business, and just keep rolling.
Nice. Paul, let's move on to a question that you may have. We're 20 minutes in. You know, typically we have these 3 topics, so I would say we're almost on schedule.
Well, since we're kind of on that, how far ahead do you usually look? What factors are you taking in? Are you taking the stock market? Are you taking where society is? Are you taking political points? Are you looking at other markets in Asia or, you know, across the ocean, and seeing what is happening in those environments and how that is going to ripple out and potentially affect us right here? And if you are, what are you looking at?
I'll start. I'm burning it all to the ground. If you listen to media as a whole, the world is already on fire, right? But I've noticed, you know, much of the literature that's out there right now is Alberta's going to have its biggest economic rebound in the last 30, 40 years. Great, but you have to take that in context of where we currently are, right? And second, again, we're worried about just right here. So long-term planning for many of my clients is a 100-day action plan 3 times a year. Because again, we don't know what new variants coming out, and if there's going to be infrastructure in BC. Like again, if you look at the news, the Armageddon is here, but realistically, we're just getting through it. So, and we're fairly fortunate to be in Alberta. But I have a client in interior BC, and Costco had 1 bag of potatoes. Like, not a case, not a pallet, 1 bag, right? So I guess we can just count our lucky stars, but I would say you should be looking at least the first quarter of 2022, if not planning out that whole year, with it being fluid and flexible.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to, like, you bring up point, Paul, about what's happening in the rest of the world. You know, if I just listen to my local media news coverage in the morning, there's maybe 10 or 12 minutes of new news, and then they just recycle it. But they rarely touch on anything that's happening big in the rest of the world, like what's, you know, other than maybe today with South Africa variant or whatever, and blew up the stock market. But there's so many other things. Sometimes I like, on the cable channels, you go to an Al Jazeera channel, you know, somewhere from the Asian part of the world, and they're just their perspective of what's going on about, you know, these countries are at war, or this is happening in China, or there's some interesting things that are out there that we just don't cover very well, and yet they could have huge ramifications to our country. So sometimes that's nice to go out and just see what's happening in the world from another perspective.
Yeah, so I work with, like I said, a diverse taking of client base, right down to one of the mining companies that we work with, one of their largest production facilities is in BC. And they've been, the last time I talked to the CEO of that company, it's on his face. It's haggard. He's stressed out to them. I mean, they're completely shut down. They're flooded up. There's a biogas company that we work with, again, in Vancouver, you know, the Vancouver, BC area, and they've been affected by it. The farmers out there, like just the farmers, the supply chain just kind of, I don't think people in BC and Alberta realize just exactly how dependent we are on each other, despite the rivalry that we have. I don't understand, you know, I'm learning a little bit more about that, but the people in BC are being told, well, you can only have 30 liters of gas at a time. Well, if you're a contractor and you have a truck, 30 liters of gas is going to get you to the next gas station if you're lucky, you know. So we've got basically one highway that they can transport on now, and it's, you know, it's log jammed now because anybody who needs to get in or out, and it's a 15-16 hour drive now, right? So we couldn't have seen that coming, but you know, you do have to kind of have your emergency plans when you've got that physical product, when you rely on supply chain. You know, you need to have contingency plans. You need to try and do the best you can to prepare to ensure you can continue your supply chain. We're fortunate a lot, though, in a way that we now live in a global economy. So I have the VA service. All of the services that I do through there is all delivered digitally. So there's been no interruption. Actually, my business has grown through COVID, through all of these things. Online stores. You know, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff when you have online stores, we do have some local product that we do feature, but a lot of the stuff comes through Amazon or Alibaba, AliExpress. So we're not experiencing those supply chains on that front. It has unfortunately affected the local supply chains. When it comes to our previous conversation, though, about when we're planning for our business, when we're marketing and that sort of thing, I have at least a 10 to 12 week lead time. I know what I want to do in the next year. So I start 12 weeks prior to, because you need at least 6 weeks prior to whatever season you're going into to actually launch that campaign, that program, whatever it is, and properly get it in front of people so that when that season or that time period comes, it's already established and people are purchasing for that. Because I mean, we've all seen it at Costco, right? They've already got back to school supplies out, and a week later, the Halloween aisle goes up, and a week later, if you're lucky, a week later, the Christmas aisle is backing onto the Halloween aisle. You know, you got to have that kind of mindset. That's how you have to plan it. You can't be planning for in the moment, because you're going to get left behind. You always have to have lead time.
Anyone else?
Oh, you better believe I have things to say. So you create your life. You are either reactive or active in life. The "how can I help you" is the best statement that we always talk about. So in life, shit's going down. How can I help you? So in my industry, I am a pioneer. I am creating life right now. I want to help people, period. Very simple, right? So the empire builders, which everyone in this conversation are strategic to create life and to help other people. So are you ahead of the game, or do you create the game? It's not being ahead, it's about creating your own game. So supply chain, your biggest asset is yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, everything. It's a tool, right? So be smarter than the system. You're smarter than everyone else that you know, because you're unique and you're individual. So what I have to say is a story. So 2 years ago, I started my company. I was like, hey, I want to work with private institutions, right? I'm like, I'm going after this person. And it was an amazing conversation. Imperial College was awesome. I knew I wanted to get a contract with them. Did I get my contract the first year? No. Did I get my contract the second year? I'm in my second year right now. No. Darn, but I need a contract, right? So I've touch point them 3 times. I've built relationships for 2 years. I called them today and I was like, excuse me, guess who I'm coming to see on Monday, bringing you a coffee, 1 p.m. She's like, yes. So on Monday, I'm going to lock down a crazy cool deal because I was cocky enough to do it before Christmas. And like, I'm building relationships right now. She might say no. Guess what? I'm coming for her next year, building relationships. So that's what I have to say about that.
Anyone else? Bobby? Scott? Danny?
Yeah, well, like if we're talking about supply chain, I think that the world is kind of in a flux state. We're finding new means and new paths and new ideas to facilitate what they have or a need for is huge. And like say, in the last week, I've had a meeting with a company that does grow sea cans, and they grow approximately 1 to 3 acres worth of, like, say, fresh vegetables in a sea can at once. During the meeting, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, this is huge for northern communities, where if they purchase these and they train somebody how to manage these cans, that supply chain issue is just totally, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore, because now they're actually self-sufficient. And I think that the world probably is going to be pushed into a place where self-sufficiency is more of a demand than actually the supply chain, where they're going to start saying, where in my group or where in my local community or business community can I find this resource where I'm not bringing it in from, Mexico or Costa Rica or Chile, and it's actually coming from local businesses, which I think in this group is kind of our principle, right? So that's kind of where I see the world going, where supply chain, if you can't be dependent on, your business is either going to fail or you're going to find another way to do it.
So COVID's brought some disruption and some innovation on that side, or fast-tracked innovation that was already, in the planning or thought about.
Well, the other thing too, right, when he's talking about going to support local markets instead of outsourcing overseas, say, for example, just because of supply chain interruptions right now, from the financial side, people are like, well, if I invest in a local source, I'm going to pay more, because obviously labor here costs and production costs more. Well, I was reading ATB's, they just released their 2022 year in advance report. So they were talking about what they expect to see inflation go up to. And we're talking about above average inflation, which means that, as much as it sounds like a dirty thing to say, you can raise your prices. If it means accommodating using local suppliers and local processes, yeah, you're going to have to raise your prices, or you're going to have to say, okay, well, while I've appreciated a 25% gross margin for profits, maybe I have to live with a 15% gross margin, but it means I can keep my doors open, or 10% or 8%.
Yeah,
and that's where people get really entitled.
It's dependable too, right? Like, we lost our e-commerce store over COVID just because nothing was coming out of China, right? Well, when you look at it in hindsight, you're like, if I was using local manufacturers, though they would have been more expensive, we probably would have had to charge more for our stuff. We would have still had an opportunity to at least be in that game still.
Yeah, but when you learn it the hard way and you exclude yourself from the possibility, you're screwed, right? And I mean, look at how distilleries went and switched over to making hand sanitizer at the beginning of COVID. Like, people got really quickly innovative, and it's like, after that we all went, I don't know, I don't want to do that again. You're like, but look what happened.
Even though I'm sure there was no shortage of liquor.
No. But it's just that ingenuity, and people get scared to use it. But when you use it, you see such a, don't get me wrong about the stockpile of hand sanitizer, but that's just because we did an overcorrection. But, if you talk about it on a industry specific level, like, just put a call out. If you don't know where to go, put an ad out that says, I'm looking to connect with people that create this. Looking at people that create this.
I know some of the people in the room know what I'm talking about. This morning, our crypto group had an issue where we were trying to figure out how to make something work. We pulled our resources together, and in the 11th hour, we made it happen, and now our whole group gets the benefit from that. It is a pretty amazing thing that happened.
You just need an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
You'll always win to a degree if you have the opportunity to play. If you don't have the opportunity to play, or you don't give yourself the opportunity to, you'll always lose.
And just to kind of add to that for myself, again, I always plan at least 12 weeks, with knowing we live in this ever-changing world. So I have a buffer there. But
lots of toilet paper, right?
Yeah.
Buffer.
No, early on it was this. Why don't you just invest in a bidet company? That's actually what I did. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I ordered quite a few of them. And I got to tell you, they were there for a very short time and I made a ton of money. But it's about that, again, how you create that innovation. So like right now, I'm buying all the BC wine that I can find, because I know that we're probably not going to have the same level of inventory or quality next year and the years following, right? So, and again, like, do I invest in wine? No, I drink wine. So like, it's a poor investment, but it's just one of those things where for some people, it's going to be a great asset, and you have to be very creative in the way that you can now, I guess, exchange or create a transaction, right? Like, there will be some people that will want BC wines. That may be a restaurant. Well, I'm not AGLC, but I'll have available opportunity to have that conversation, right?
So go to Matt's garage and get all your wine needs met.
But you better hurry because I'm drinking it. It's Christmas time.
Does that mean you're posting your address in the chat so we can all meet at your house?
For sure. Yeah, it'll be great.
Excellent. Bobby, you had something you were going to say?
Not really. I was just kind of nodding along. I agree. And then Danielle piped in, and 100% I'm on board with what they expressed.
Cool. So do you see a let's take a larger view, 50,000 foot view overall. Do you see things starting to really decentralize rather than centralize in markets around you? And do you see that trend to continuing?
What does that mean?
I was going to say, can you repeat the question at a grade 4 level? Like, simmer down.
Well, decentralizing, meaning that there's not one way, there's not one chain, it's not top down. It's, we have solar power here, so we can power our community. We have our own food resources. We can feed our own area. So that's what I mean by decentralization, not relying on larger companies or supply chains to meet our needs. Because we're seeing this already in the crypto industry. Decentralization is big, right?
It's been trending for a while to be self-sustainable. And I think with the changes that have happened, so abruptly in the last couple of years, and even in the last, few weeks, people are starting to see the value of, I think, of being decentralized, which how I think about it in my head is centralized. But I think we have quickly realized how much we rely on other countries and other provinces to meet our basic needs on a daily basis. Like Matt mentioned, one bag of potatoes at a Costco in BC is unreal. I spent my summer last year with nothing to do. So I went and volunteered and helped build some greenhouses for a local farmer. And I just met him through like a friend of a friend of a friend. I've got the skills. So we went and built 5 giant greenhouses. So in 2 years from now, he already has 100% sustainable home. So he doesn't rely on the grid for anything besides internet. And in 2 years from now, he won't need to leave his home for food unless he wants meat. So, when it comes to that industry, I mean, people have been thinking about that for a while, but when, like even your banking and like the toilet paper, like what if we didn't get on Matt's train and get a bidet? How are we getting our stuff? Who's the local manufacturer for that? Are we willing to pay that price to go and to be able to have our resources back? And we've gone through a lot of American presidents who were like, America's the king of the earth and we will keep all of our resources here. So if we were manufacturing Canada, like Obama pulled out automotive manufacturing and moved them into the States. So is Canada going to start to take control of some of their resources and their skills? And maybe we'll pay a little bit of a higher price as consumers, but at what cost? To me, the cost is we've got more jobs, we've got more opportunity, and should something go awry like it has of late, we can be self-sustaining without having to live off the grid like this farmer that I was helping out. That's just a overarching thought. But
yeah, I agree with you 100%, Bobby. As I just I said before, we are living in a global economy. So there's a lot of that that's happening. And now with crypto, with the NFTs, I mean, I'm already involved in NFTs, for goodness sakes, right? So blockchain, all of this stuff that's happening, the agri-tech that's coming out, how you can automate a farm to maximize the amount of good quality product that farm is producing. And it's all digital, it's all digitized, right? We're relying less and less on other people. And I think it's because a lot of people have finally, now that they've had the experience of it, because we've been forced into that, we're recognizing the freedom we have in that. And, being self-sufficient, being self-sustaining. Now, we still have to have relations with other nations. Just if we want any degree of world peace, we still need to work together. There's still going to be certain things that we're going to have to compromise and negotiate on just to keep those channels open. But there's a whole generation of people right now that are being chided by another generation of people because, well, all they do is sit at home in front of their computers. Well, yeah, but they're making 100 times more money than you are right now. And you don't even see them working, right? It's decentralization is, it's not even a trend. It's like Bobby said, it's something that we've been moving toward. And now with COVID and now with the natural disasters and that, it's undeniable the amount of value that there is in a certain degree of self-sufficiency. You just can't argue with it.
Yeah, and I think it becomes too, like you start to think about it morally as well. Like, what's my impact by making the choices that I've made? Anybody who, wasn't considering climate change and it hasn't been for the forefront of their mind, the people who still throw their garbage out the window, and blast their AC to 17 degrees all year for no reason, like seeing what just happened in BC, maybe now your moral compass might adjust a little bit to think about how your everyday actions in a very small way create this big explosive picture and how we're contributing, which forces that thought process of like, okay, how can I add to the solution here, since I may have been part of the problem without realizing it. And again, creating that sustainable way of living in general within your own region, within your own province, within your own country, while still maintaining our relationships with other countries. Like Canada has enough textiles to survive for years. Like look at Walmart. The country could live off one Walmart for a year. There's so much clothes in there and so much stuff in the back that we could repurpose and remake, but we obviously want to keep our relationships going. But if we can't get fabric or like whatever for 6 months because of something that happened, can we survive as a country? Absolutely. Will we be able to maintain our relationship? Absolutely. Can we go without food? Why isn't a first world country that has green space everywhere growing food? Or why is somebody going to big American bank for their investments when we've got ATB right here? If ATB had more clients, would they have more resources? I don't know. There's so much to think about when you jump into it. But I do think that when it comes to some things, there's now starting to become a moral issue of the decisions that you need to make as a human being and as a consumer as we move forward. But
I'd just like to add to that too. First of all, when you talk about the banks, I work a lot with the banks and that sort of thing. And I'm going to tell you right now, be ready to see a massive shift in the financial world. The way that the banks are thinking and the policies that they're putting forward, I hope that they've very much enjoyed their $1 billion of profits over the last few years, because they're going to start to see that dwindle very quickly. And they might come down to only millions a year, but it's still going to hurt them. They're just so antiquated. And they're just not catching the vision of what this means to be in the world now. And I also, a few years ago, when it comes to just services and supply chain, I said to, I've had conversations a lot over the last couple of years about how we're going to start to see a shift in how we view professions, how the people right now that we were treating like the janitors of the schools and those sorts of things, how they were like looked down on, and there was going to be a shift because those people were actually going to become in demand. Because there's so few people, everybody's so stuck on their degrees and their big, there's so few people left to do those jobs, and they would become in demand. And we're starting to see that right now. There's places in the world where McDonald's is hiring people and they're paying them $30 an hour and they're still understaffed, right? We're starting to see that shift, that flip already too.
Well, and if I may, this kind of leads into my final question, is that like, and we chatted about this, I think 2 weeks ago, what does the year 2035 look like, right? Like, what's the entry level job? Like I look at my now 10-year-old going, okay, well, McDonald's is no longer the entry level job. that's probably not where she's going to shift. So I had a very detailed conversation about what the next generation is going to be building as an asset base, right? Like right now we have this massive shift of wealth. Baby boomers are either no longer with us, or they're shifting their wealth into a donor scenario or succession planning, whatever it may be. But then we also have these 20-year-olds that are never going to buy a house and they're going to live in a van. Well, I love that idea. And like, I have a van, but like, it's a depreciating asset, right? So you have real estate that typically does this. And like right now it's like doing this, or you have a vehicle that's going to depreciate to become a liability, right? So where do we see the investment opportunity? And Dawn, again, like I want to ask you first, and Justin maybe second. We got 15 minutes, so we got to be mindful of that. But where do you see like the asset base from a client or from society as a whole? Like who's buying homes? Because I think it's all us at like the 45 plus mark, because our mindset is, what the hell is an NFT? I'm going to buy a house, right? But where do you see it kind of going in the new world?
From my limited view, I think we're all moving into digital properties and digital realms and things. You know, right now you can buy the digital space over the Coliseum for a certain amount per square meter or whatever. You can buy that space so that maybe there's an interaction where I can go to the Eskimos game digitally and it'll pop me right on the field and whatever. But there's sort of a digital property to go with that. You know, so we're gonna keep talking about property, but I think the expansion has changed. It's no longer going to have to be, dirt, in a little spot in town. It could be some digital space up here or digital artwork, or it's the whole world is going to change. And I think as companies go, I think they have to think about diversifying their assets. If they got some extra assets, and where do they put them, and not just bury them in the bank somewhere, that they're going to have something that has appreciation, because inflation is going to keep on going up, and putting your money in a savings account or a low earning stock account, that's not going to keep up with inflation. So your money is actually going backwards. So you have to come up with some things that are different, and it's probably going to be, there's so many of these things in the digital realm that are going to be exciting to do, and people have to learn about it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Justin, your thoughts there?
I think it's going to boil down to the person as to what they want. Do you want a wife and kids and live in a house in the suburbs? Do you want a wife and kids and live out of a van on the beach? I think we'll start looking at that. But I also think that, the banks, Shannon, to your point, I think the banks are going to see a run for certain things. Assets are going to be tied up in things like NFT and crypto, and with some of the younger generation. I can't believe I just said that. All right, I'm going to leave now. I'm going to slowly see myself to the door. I think you're going to start to see that where people are going to have their assets tied up in a decentralized ecosystem. You don't have to rely on the banks anymore. Mm-hmm. Coming back from that conference in Vegas, 30% of the speakers were talking about decentralizing the banks. They were talking about your bank being right here. This is your bank. You need a loan, you go through here. Guess who's going to give you the loan? It's going to be your peers. It's not going to be the bank anymore. Are you going to be charged, prime plus? Maybe not. Are you going to be charged a little bit more? Maybe. But it's all going to be done through here. And your assets are going to be tied up through virtual stuff. Again, if that's what you want. If you want a spouse and kids and you want to live in the suburbs and drink beer on a Sunday and barbecue and mow the lawn, then, you're going to work your ass off to get that at the same time. But I think that we are in for a pretty significant shift for a lot of people. And there's going to be a lot of rude awakenings for a lot of people.
Yeah. And like, Matt, you're talking about where your 10-year-old will be in 10 years and what her life will look like. And how the van is not an asset, how it's always going to be depreciating. In the current mindset of the market, the best thing that you can do as a young person is to buy into the housing market and to invest long term. How are you supposed to do that when, a decent house in in Ontario or Alberta is $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for your first time home. How are you supposed to do that at 25 with $50,000 worth of student loans? And are they going to be $50,000 in 10 years? Probably not, probably close to 75, 100. And so to live in your van and live the life that you want to live, yeah, it's not an appreciating asset, but you're not spending any money to live, really. So you can afford to invest the way that you want to, in these new ways, having assets and NFTs, and buying crypto and whatnot, so that you can afford to become, more of the mainstream, like, cool, I own my home. But are people going to live in it? It might be cheaper to continue to live in your van or rent somewhere else and then rent out your home. So the way that, what we think right now versus 10 years down the road, what's accessible, with inflation and with this whole sustainability talk that we had, with that new change in mindset that people are having, is what is living in a van is it really a depreciating asset, or is it now a luxury and gives you an opportunity to live and express your financial life a different way?
Oh, listen, I'm Chris Farley. Like, I'm going to live in a van down by the river. So like, I appreciate both sides. And I do feel that, like you had mentioned, you're going to be working anywhere in North America, but in the back of your van, buying NFTs and doing this and doing that. And you may still purchase a brick and mortar, right? But it will be for Airbnb or short-term rental or whatever else we live in, right? So like early on, my wife and I discussed a car fund for our kids. Well, that fund has gone away because honestly, we feel in 6 years, the need to purchase a vehicle for our kids is probably going to be negated with all forms of co-share and co-this and co-that and whatever it may be, right? So you're just going to reallocate and reinvest, hopefully wisely. But yeah, no, great statements. Paul, why don't you kind of wrap us up? Because I know we only got 6-7 minutes.
Well, your daughter's going to be 20. She will be living in a van, but she will be making an income playing games. She's probably going to be starting to make an income in the next year or two, right, just by playing games on that side. And by, the new things that are coming up. I know Scott and Danny were talking about a search engine. Just by using that, you get paid. And there was a game, something with cats, where you actually get paid on that too. So there's lots of things that are coming, and that are going to be out there where it's participation. Danny, what was that game with the cats?
So the game's called Merge Cats, and I for shits and giggles, I decided that it would be fun to run something slightly automated in the gaming world on my phone. Everybody's got these like casino apps that run in the background and they're all automated and they get their big wins. This is crypto. In the last 2 weeks, I've made a collective $45 in crypto, which, to some people, they're like, oh my God, it's only $45. I made $45 for basically doing nothing but run an automated cost where I have Wi-Fi, so it's not like it costs me data. It sits there, and then my 7-year-old has decided that this Merge Cats game is the best game ever, because as soon as you put the two types of cats together, they go meow, and then you stick them in the wheel and they run around the wheel and they earn you money. And she thinks it's the best thing ever. And they're going to play something. I might as well have her earning friggin' LIS tokens because it's fun. And if you're looking at it, like we did a quick search the other day on crypto-based play to earn video games coming out in 2022, there are just a redonkulous amount of up and coming organizations investing into gaming, because if you look at the statistics for gaming worldwide, it's huge.
We bought property in a metaverse, and those get us passive income every day too. So
yeah, we collect digital rent from our properties. You can build statues and monuments and buildings, and over time, because there's a finite amount of properties. Today we bought them for $6 US, but in 5 years they could be worth $60,000 each. Right. And it's the long game. But this is where we come back to this entire roundtable discussion, which is diversify and get yourself to the point where you're flexible. Right. Like Matt said, get to the point where your strategy is flexible and malleable and able to be adjusted. Well, if one game starts to tank, look at another one. If this one goes, look at another one.
There is just $6.
It was like $6. But long term, that could be really beneficial. And yeah, your 7-year-old's going to be playing something anyway. You might as well get them earning crypto for you. I'm not sorry.
huge changes coming, right? We're seeing huge disruptors. We're seeing the baby boomers retiring. So what are they going to be doing? They're going to be downsizing, right? We have the millennial generation that, I think the average age is about 33. They're in their home buying stage. So, we're seeing that shift. We're seeing finance stock shift. We're seeing political shifts. So, I think by 2035, it's going to be massive.
I love it. I up until this week, I said we live in such a strange world, and that was just the wrong context. We live in such exciting world. Like, who would have thought? For myself, I'm mid 40s. We're living in the matrix. Like, we are creating the matrix, because again, we're buying property that doesn't exist, right? It's all ones and zeros. So to me, it's super exciting because it's fresh, new, and it's like, I really don't understand it, but I'm learning as I go. And it kind of speaks to the new way to do business, which is if you're waiting for the perfect shot, right, and perfect aim to take that shot, you're going to be left behind. So for myself, it's again, 100-day action plan 3 times a year, being flexible enough, but knowing that whatever isn't on your radar is on somebody else's, and you better make sure that you ask somebody that is smarter than you about what is in the know, because you may have the biggest opportunity under your feet and you don't know it.
I was going to say too, just on the last thought from me too, but like we went back to like 2 weeks ago when we did the last one, and I said stuff your funnel. Stuffing your funnel can really just be the theme for 2022, because it doesn't have to mean business. It means conversations. It means, like you said, there are so many smart people in every single room. If you haven't had a one-to-one in every single room, like with everybody in this room, you have so much to learn, which means that your funnel is not as stuffed as it could be. So if you want to do the best in your 100-day action plan, get to having conversations, figure out what you don't know, because if there's ever been a time where we don't know what we don't know, it's right now until we do. And when you do, you realize that there's 10 more things that you don't know, but it's whether you want to take on the challenge of learning them or whether you want to just step by and let it flow past you.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to be it for Bucks Lunch. We've heard growing your own vegetables, start playing more games online to make money. Start thinking differently, looking at opportunities that maybe you would definitely run away from because you don't want to learn about that because you're stuck in your ways. So with that, I'm Paul Fikowski with MCC Coaching. We got our co-host Matt Hewson, and to all of our panel guests, Dawn, Shannon, Justin, and we did have Lorette. She had to leave. Bobby's gone, and we have Danielle and Scott. So thanks again, guys, for a great MCC box lunch. Really appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks a lot.
See you next week. Thanks.
See ya.